Hello everyone, we are delighted to have you back for the AutomationEdge training. In the first part of end-to-end deployment, we explored the process of publishing a workflow from the Process Studio to the AutomationEdge server. Now, let's delve into the second part of end-to-end deployment, which involves configuring the workflow on the server, assigning the workflow to an agent, executing the workflow from the catalog menu, and monitoring the execution result on the request page. Once the workflow has been successfully published from the Process Studio to the AutomationEdge server, we can proceed to log into the AutomationEdge server. Let's log in to AutomationEdge server. As you can see, in the Workflow List submenu of Workflow menu, we will be able to locate and access the recently published workflow. Currently, the workflow is in inactive state and requires configuration to activate it. To begin the configuration process, click on the Edit icon located in the Action column. Once inside the configuration screen, you will observe that most of the essential details such as workflow name, description, category are already pre-filled. These were set while publishing the workflow from Process Studio. If needed, you can update the workflow description here. Please note that this is mandatory field. Workflow category displays the category to which the workflow belongs. In the associated process field, you can modify or specify the name of the process you wish to associate with this workflow. To assign an icon to the workflow, click on the button and select the desired image. Select the type of execution you want to assign to the workflow. The available execution types are regular, sequential, and singleton. Regular option is used to execute a workflow request by agent in a non-sequential manner. This type is suitable for workflows that do not have strict execution order requirements. For example, a data massaging workflow typically runs in a non-sequential manner. Sequential. We can select this option to execute the workflow request by agent in a sequential manner. A workflow having desktop or Windows automation should be executed sequentially, as it requires the active screen. And the third execution type is singleton. So we can choose this option to run the workflow in a singleton mode. Only workflows of type regular can be marked as singleton. When a workflow is configured as singleton, the AutomationEdge server ensures that only one instance of the workflow is executed on a particular agent at a time, even though the workflow itself supports parallel execution. This is particularly useful when there are dependencies between workflow requests, ensuring the one request completes before another begins. Since we did not select the Assisted Workflow checkbox while deploying the workflow from Process Studio, the Assisted Workflow property is set to the false by default. Assisted workflow are the one which needs manual intervention. It's important to note that once a workflow is deployed, you cannot toggle between assisted and unassisted modes. Additionally, if a workflow is marked as assisted, it is automatically treated as a sequential workflow. As you all know, Enable RDP checkbox is checked to start an RDP session of an agent machine to which workflow is assigned on the controller agent machine. When Is RDP enabled is checked, is sequential execution is automatically selected. Since RDP is generally required for sequential workflows that need an active screen. In this workflow, we do not require RDP, so we are not selecting the checkbox. Enable Input Attribute checkbox displays additional input attributes in the parameter from displayed during workflow execution from AutomationEdge catalog. These are used to capture additional information. We can select Enable Step Matrix and Logging checkbox if we want the logging details of a workflow or process and step or entry to be made available. Select Enable Workflow Monitoring checkbox if we want to enable the workflow monitoring feature. Select Enable Workflow Checkpointing checkbox if you want to activate the workflow checkpointing feature. We can select Capture Raw Data on Workflow Failure and Capture Screenshot on Workflow Failure checkboxes if we want to capture the workflow failure details and a screenshot of the error. So, if the email notification is set, then the users will receive email with attachment containing these details and notifying them of the error. Select Auto Delete Input Files checkbox if you want to automatically delete the input files after execution of the workflow. If this setting is enabled, the request input files are deleted from the server storage after a successful execution. If the execution fails, the files are kept until the restart validity of the request so that they can be used again after restart. After this period, a midnight job deletes the files. Next, we can set the workflow priority. This feature allows us to prioritize the workflow request, ensuring they execute according to their set priority. It supports three priorities: low, default and high. Expected completion time in seconds configuration specifies the expected time to complete a workflow from the time it is triggered. This field is mandatory. Maximum completion time in seconds specifies the maximum time to complete a workflow from the time it is triggered. This is also a mandatory field. If workflow execution is not completed within maximum completion time, then Terminate button appears in the Request tab so that the user can terminate the workflow execution. Also, notification is sent if the email notification settings are done for the same. Cleanup request older than hours. This configuration is used to mark request in a new status older than the number of hours provided as expired. Please note that if we enter the request cleanup duration more than that set by the system administrator, we will see an error message. For example, if the system administrator has set the time as 2 hours and if we enter 3 hours, we will get the error message informing of the same. However, we can enter the time which is lower than 2 hours. We can do email notification setting if we wish to notify by email on workflow failure or on exceeding time limit. We can send the notification by user role, by username or by specific email address. Request creator checkbox is used to notify the request creator, and failure message is used to write a free text failure message for the notification. Next is tags, which help in faster search of a workflow. If the tags are added when you publish the workflow through Process Studio, then you will see them in the list. However, you can also add tags through AUI. In the value field, enter the tag that you want and put a comma or press enter. If you do not press enter or put a comma, then the tag is not saved. You can add maximum of 5 tags. After saving the changes of the workflow, the tag icon appears in the tag field. To view the tags, click on the tag list appeared. Lastly, we can set the configuration parameter for use in the workflow execution. Configuration parameter can be string, boolean, file, number, integer, date and credential. As we do not have any configuration parameter for this workflow, we are directly clicking on the Save button. Workflow updated successfully message appeared. Now, to activate the workflow, we can click on the Activate toggle switch. In the action column of workflow, we have View version history, Show workflow files and Delete workflow actions available. View version history. This feature enables you to have the option of using any one of the workflow versions as required. By using Delete workflow, we can delete the workflow, and Show workflow file will provide the list of the files and folders present in the workflow. Now, let's see how we can assign the workflow to an agent. Make a note that we can assign up to 300 workflows to an agent. Let's click on the Workflow Assignment sub-menu of the Agents menu. You can see the agent list available over here. On the right hand side, we can see the list of the available workflows. Let's click on the Edit button. Now let's select the checkbox next to the data massaging project and click on the Save button. As you can see, pop-up of Confirm the assignment has appeared. Let's acknowledge the message. Now let's go to the Catalog menu. As you can see, the workflow is now visible in the catalog. Before executing a workflow from the catalog menu, make sure your agent is in a running state. So let's go to the agent menu and see the status of the agent. So my agent is in a running state currently. So let's go back to the catalog menu again. Let's click on the data massaging project workflow icon. Let's click on a submit request. A pop-up for successful request submission will appear with the request ID. Note the request ID and acknowledge the pop-up. To see the execution result, let's go to the request page. As you can see in the request page, the data massaging workflow execution request is completed. We can click on the plus sign present beside the complete status and we can download the output files. With this, we have successfully completed part 2 of end-to-end deployment. The workflow is published to the server and executed successfully. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.